How about Drew Carey?
Yeah, Drew Carey was a lot of fun to work with. We worked with him on a show called The Good Life. This was before the Drew Carey show and before The Price is Right. Yeah, interesting guy. He was a Marine before he went into acting. I know we went to his apartment once just to hang out. I think Norm Macdonald came to that. Uh, a lot of young people, and they were smoking pot. Again, this is
Wow.
before he was like a big shot. You know?
Hey, thanks for watching. If you hit the subscribe button, it'll help us out a lot. Thanks again.
What are some of the shows and films you have worked on that people would recognize that are listening or watching?
Yeah, so a lot of TV. The Jeffersons, One Day at a Time, Alf, Newhart, South Park, Dilbert, Duckman, a whole bunch of other stuff, and created 5 TV shows. One of them was The Wild Thornberrys.
Okay.
It's a kids show, yeah, it's an animated show.
And some films, right?
Yeah, I worked on with Steven Spielberg on the Flintstones movie, and there were several movies based on our Wild Thornberrys characters. So there are probably 3 of those altogether. Yeah. So,
Sweet, sweet. So, how did you crack the bubble of Hollywood? I mean, it's not an easy bubble to crack.
I think it's harder now than it was for me, but yeah, I would still. So yeah, I taught a whole class at UCLA on breaking in, and yeah, so the trick is you have to have a good writing sample. That's the first step. So it's either if you want to be a screenwriter for like a feature writer, then you have to write a movie script, and if you want to be a TV writer, which I advise is a good idea. There's more jobs there. You need a sample script from a TV show or a pilot. Like they're preferring pilots now, but back when I broke in, my partner and I wrote a taxi spec and a Barney Miller spec. Which then, when I say spec, that means we dreamed up our own episode idea for it and wrote it. And it was on speculation, so we weren't paid or anything for those. But those were the samples that got us jobs. And then once we got the jobs, we got William Morris came. They called us right up. So these guys, these guys are getting hired on staff at One Day at a Time. We were like 20s in our 20s back then. So yeah, the agents will find you if you have a good enough deal.
But how did you? I mean, you submitted these scripts, but you're unknown. I mean, how did you get? There's a million people that want to submit scripts. How did you get people to see it?
Yeah, so there's a couple chapters on that in the book, How to Be a
I'm
Rock
sure. Yeah.
Screenwriter. And yeah, when you're just starting out, and we didn't have an agent when we started out or a manager or anything, so um, there's a form you can get for free on the internet. It's a release form. It releases anybody who reads your script from, you're not going to sue them. That's what it tells them. So you can read this, and I won't sue you if something similar comes up. And so, yeah, we used those. We sent our taxi and our Barney Miller specs to uh, people in the business, and people started liking them a lot. And we're very lucky there. We were invited to pitch Mork and Mindy. The TV show with Robin Williams, and then once we got that job, we sold a story there. It's kind of like there's a word of mouth went out, and we got invited to the Jeffersons. Uh, and so far we have no agent or anything setting these things up. Uh, but when we did pitch the Jeffersons, I brought those 2 scripts with me, the spec scripts that I talked about. And down the hall, this is all the Norman Lear shows were in the same building. So One
Hmm.
Day at a Time was another show with Valerie Bugnelli. And so I took those 2 scripts and, of course, the release forms down to this story editor's office for One Day at a Time. His name was Bud Weiser, which is kind of a strange name, but
Budweiser, gotta love that.
that was his
Oh,
real
right.
name. Anyway, I left 2 scripts on his desk, and we got a call saying to come in, and we sold them a script and we wrote it, and then they said, you know, we like what you're doing, and you know, we want to hire you on staff. So
So who calls the shot as far as payment? Like you sold them the script. Are you saying this is what I want, or are they saying this is the rate that we give people who are unknown?
yeah, that was lucky. Budweiser and the two showrunners. Um, yeah, they were looking for somebody at that time, so a lot of it was timing.
Sure.
Um, yeah, a couple of people had left the show, and they needed to fill that space. So yeah, they decided that what we were writing was good enough. It was on the level of the show, even though we were newbies.
Hmm.
So they hired us for a whole year, and that's how we got our first real staff job in television.
So I mean, just briefly prior to, you went to Stanford, right, to study psychotherapy, and you end up at USC to study film. I mean, that's a good prerequisite for dealing with Hollywood.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I started out, as a kid. My family went to therapy like every 2 weeks, and because my brother had OCD, and so I was in there. We were all talking about psychology issues, and I started to get used to it, and I liked it. And I thought, and then my brother miraculously was cured. He doesn't have that problem anymore. So I was very impressed. Yeah, so when I got to Stanford, I thought I would major in psychology. So I did the psychology there. They had the best, you know, yeah, the teachers there were like the number one psychology department. So anyway, I graduated there, and then also towards the end of my 4 years there, I took a course with Scott Turow, who wrote Presumed Innocent in creative writing, and I liked it a lot. And I started writing these sort of funny uh, short stories. Anyway, then the summer after Stanford, I made a short film, and my brother and sister were in it. It's like just kind of amateur hour, but I sent
Sure.
the script to USC, and I got into their film department, which was again like the number one department in the country. So a lot of luck involved there too.
Yeah. Well, timing is everything, right? Networking and timing.
Yeah.
So you fast forward to today. We'll get through other stuff, but your book, "How to Be a Rockstar Screenwriter," what separates that from, in your opinion, from other, you know, plethora of screenwriting books? In fact, I have one right over there. I'm sure you've heard "Save the Cat." You know, that's like
Oh
the
yeah, that's number one.
yeah. You loved reading that, and I think I have the second one, "Save the Cat Strikes Back." Anyway,
Right.
but what's your book
So
gonna
those
give?
books are very good. I recommend them. In my book, I recommend a few books besides
Yeah.
mine. And they focus on how to write the script and nothing more really. So my book's more about some of the psychology of it. Um, it's very hard. Usually, like the typical writer breaks in on their seventh or eighth screenplay. So they're going through a period where they're writing 6 or 7 scripts and nobody's that interested. So it's a tough thing for a writer to keep going after like getting like zero feedback that helps or validation, right? So I talk about the Zen of screenwriting, that part of it where you have to, like, you're not going to sell this script, but you have to consider all the other advantages of writing it. It's going to be your sample script. It will get you an agent possibly, or it will get you in to meet a producer and then you can sell a script to them. So I try to work on the psychology. This is why you have to keep writing because it's easy to give up. A lot of people do after 3 or 4 scripts, and nothing happens.
What's I mean, do you feel it's absolutely necessary to move to Hollywood or New York to be closer to the industry? I mean, even today?
Yeah, so there's two different answers to that. If you're writing screenplays, you don't have to live here. If you want
Hmm.
to write on a television show, you do have to live here because most TV shows are written like with a staff of writers, and there's a thing they call the room. The room. You might have heard stories about the room where they have like typically a staff is 10 to 15 writers, and all the creative stuff happens in the room. So they break stories in the room. Uh, they rewrite scripts in the room. Like on a comedy show, there's tons of rewrites. Like we would have a rehearsal on Tuesday, and I would stay up late Tuesday night to fix all the stuff that didn't work. And it's rarer than when you have a script that's just 100% and kicks ass. But, so Tuesday nights we sometimes stayed till 3, 4, or 5 in the morning trying to fix everything. And that's where the room comes in handy. You have all these voices, and more people can pitch ideas and jokes, and you can also send you two guys go off and rewrite that scene and come back, and there's like a lot of different ways to use the room. So, but if you're living in LA, to answer your question, that's your best shot at getting a TV job.
I'm sure. Right. Now, who, I mean, everyone wants to make money. uh, just who, I mean, if you think about being rich, you probably won't make it because you got to focus on writing, etc. But who makes the money? A showrunner, director, actor, producer, writer? Who's cashing in if you had to really narrow that down?
Yeah, well, the showrunner in television anyway, he's making the most money because he created the show. And
Okay.
in fact, we created 5 shows together, my partners and I. Um,
But isn't that like a producer, or is that two different things?
yeah, they call them executive producer, but they're also showrunners and head
Okay.
writers. So they're multiple, names for it. But yeah, you make good money. You when we had a couple of like successes, and then Fox hired us in a development deal, and they paid us $1 million a year to create
You.
more shows. So that's big money for writers. That's
But
probably as good as it gets. I mean, a guy like Dick Wolf who creates Law and Order, he's probably getting 10 million, to develop,
he's established, right?
right? But yeah,
Hmm,
the other
nice
people
cash
who
flow.
do make money, the actors tend to. You read about $20 million salaries for like Leonardo DiCaprio or big stars, and
Far and few between, but still, I mean, you can cash in definitely.
yeah,
Did you think entering a screenplay contest is worth it?
yeah, that's a good question. I think it could be. There's 3: the Nichols, the Austin, and the Page. They
I mean, there's big ones, and then like Philadelphia has one. Pittsburgh has one. There's all kind of screenplay contests, but I mean, the Nichols. I mean, there's a ton of people trying out. I mean,
Yeah, no, it's true. It's hard to win that one, but if you do, you're probably going to get your movie made. Those 3 have the most clout with producers and people who buy and make movies. And
but do you feel? I mean, like you consult on scripts and stuff. I mean, would it be better if someone came to you with all your experience, or trying to throw a dart at the board at a screenwriting contest? I mean, it seems like a long shot.
right, right. No, yeah, there's a chapter in my book where I talk about how you get better as a writer. That's why the screenwriters don't sell their first script. They get better because they're after writing 6 of them. You start to learn the craft a little bit better. But the other
Sure.
thing that will really help you learn is to have a professional read your script. So I do that. Eric Bork does that. He's really good at it. He wrote Band of Brothers for HBO, the TV show. Won an Emmy for it, and so he's really excellent.
Now, have you ever, not to be a dick, but have you ever read a script that someone sent you? You don't know this person, and it's like, ugh, sorry, this is not.
Oh
You're way off.
yeah,
You're way off. It's not even close. I mean, you got to tell these people straight up, right?
I know that's hard, but I'm pretty good when I do consult like that. I'm pretty good at coming up with ways to fix it and make it better. So I help out that way. But
Hmm,
it's true. A lot of people, they should read Save the Cat,
that's great. Yeah.
or the Sid Field has a good book too. I think it's just called Screenplay. But yeah, you got to learn all the fundamentals early on.
Do you believe taking a? I'm sure it can't hurt, but not a screenwriting, creative writing class is beneficial. I would think it would be.
Yeah, yeah. When I was at USC, I took a whole bunch of writing classes, and The thing about USC, like there's a chapter in my book about should you go to film school or should you take that money and make a movie? There's different approaches. I know. Um, yeah, there's a lot of examples of writers who, instead of going to film school, they made a film. Guys like, well, Spike Lee made his first movie, Do the Right Thing, and Lena Dunham made some movie called Furniture. She didn't go to film school, but she's very successful. She had the TV show Girls and a couple other projects.
So it's not absolutely necessary. It can't hurt, but it's not like
Right,
it's, you better do it or you're never going to make it.
right, yeah. You could, like in my book, I suggest a couple of things you could do instead. So I taught at UCLA Extension, and they have affordable screenwriting courses on their in their extension. So you don't have to get in. You don't have to have a GPA and high SAT scores or anything to get into the to that program. So I recommend, because the good thing about UCLA and USC is you're learning from professionals.
Sure.
They hire guys who have a track record and have written lots of scripts and sold them.
Plus, you make friends, and networking is huge.
Yeah, that's where I met my writing partner, and we wrote that taxi spec and the Barney Miller spec together, and we were pretty lucky because we got interest. Like it took us maybe a year to get those together, and we got hired right away. So
Hmm. Hmm.
it can happen.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean sometimes it does happen. Uh, you can, like, we didn't sell those scripts to Taxi or Barney Miller, but it got us into all these shows that they liked the writing on. So,
Hmm. Nice. Have you ever seen The Poor and Hungry?
The Poor and Hungry. I
Yeah,
haven't.
it's the first film. Yeah, have you heard of Hustle and Flow? You've heard of that movie, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Hustle and Flow. Well, the director, I think Dwyer, or I might be mispronouncing it. He made this Poor and Hungry film with a video camera. I mean,
right.
a regular home video camera,
Yeah,
but it's really good. It's black and white. It's really good, but someone saw it, and that led to him getting the Hustle and Flow. And anyway, anybody listening, I recommend The Poor and Hungry. It's on YouTube. It's really,
okay. Yeah, I'll check it out.
yeah, it's very guerrilla filmmaking, but good. The guy knew what he was doing. He just only had a home movie camera or home video camera.
Right,
Anyway,
right.
yeah, it's very good. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, a lot of
So
people
when you
do that instead of
okay,
going to film school. They make a movie. I know
I mean,
I think it was Lena Dunham's parents say, "Here, you can have this money. You can either make a movie or go to film school." And I gave her enough money to make that short. It was actually a feature. I think it's called Furniture.
nowadays, with the phones, you can make a movie on your phone
Yeah,
and literally put it on Final Cut Pro and at least get something, the interest of people.
yeah,
Back in the day, I mean, your home movie cameras were,
sure. Yeah, there's a film called Tangerine that was made all on an iPhone, and you can find that on YouTube as well.
yeah,
A lot of
yeah,
really good
pretty
movies get done.
pretty wild.
Yeah, that's your entry point too. Once you finish something like that, it's a sample of your work, and people are impressed, like you said, with Hustle and Flow. Uh,
Yeah, love that movie. But I mean, you could not be living in LA, right? Make your film and somehow show someone online. And back in the day, I mean,
right,
you'd have to
right.
get that film to the hands of people to watch it. It's a whole different animal now, but still not an easy
Yeah, yeah.
task.
And I have friends who, like, I have one friend who lives in Nashville, and he writes movies. He usually writes low budget, sort of action, uh, but they're sort of comedic also. And Bob Sands is his name, and
Okay.
he's written a whole bunch of movies, and he still lives in Nashville. He didn't have to come out here. If he might have to, you might have to fly out here for the meeting, But or there's Zoom now, so you might not need to actually be.
There you go.
But
Exactly.
again,
Right. Now
those
you
are
did
feature
you
films.
did the animation too, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. My partner and I wrote for a whole bunch of animated shows. So Winnie the Pooh was an Emmy-winning um, TV show that Disney made, and yeah, my partner won an Emmy for that.
Nice.
So, and then, yeah, based on that, we were asked to produce a couple animated TV shows, and we also sold The Wild Thornberries, which is animated.
Now, what's your feeling on, like, when I'm growing up? I mean, I don't know how old you are, but you're close to me. I'm guessing. I could be wrong,
Yeah,
but my point is,
I'm really old.
back in the day, you know, Bugs Bunny, the Roadrunner, Tom and Jerry, all these, they're pretty violent. Now I'm watching these cartoons with my grandchildren, and it's pretty sedated. Do you think, like, when I was watching these cartoons back in the day, I wasn't going out and bashing my friends in the head, from watching cartoons? It seems really, I don't know, boring to me, these cartoons.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Things are changing. There's a lot of PC culture stuff kicking in, and yeah, it's kind of dilutes the fun of some of these.
Exactly.
There's still some good cartoons out there. I mean, South Park is really good.
Well, yeah, that's
Simpsons is still good, but yeah, kids cartoons get affected that way a lot. Yeah, the
I
Wild
guess.
Thornberries was a really fun experience. They let us do kind of adult humor. Yeah, if you really, most of the cartoons, even for kids cartoons, they have a adult level jokes in them. I know we all try to get things in there.
Sure. What do you find harder to write, comedy, drama, or movies?
Yeah, movies to me are harder
Really.
because I spent like 30 years in television. I kind of know, how to break down a TV show and how to do it right. Yeah, movies are a little trickier. Yeah, the act break structures are different. They're longer, and yeah, you really need. But for people who are writing movies, I would suggest low budget right now. Yeah, there's a tendency of the big movie studios. They just want to hire the A-list guys that they
Mm.
know, and so they keep using those guys over and over. So guys with a track record. So it's hard for like a newbie to break in. But low budget and specifically low budget horror, that's an easy show to sell. TV, I mean, movie to sell compared to
Mm.
everything else. Because you don't need a big star for horror movies. Like you can have like the Blair Witch Project. There's nobody knew those people's names, and it was a
Hmm.
huge hit. And they're also inexpensive compared to, like, one actor can raise the budget by 20 grand.
Sure, sure.
20
In
grand.
fact, that the movie I was mentioning, The Poor and Hungry,
Oh
he
yeah!
spent $20,000.
Wow, that's great.
This is back in the '90s, but it obviously led to more for him. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Robert Rodriguez wrote his film. He said El Mariachi for $7,000. I had a lot of friends, working for free, but
Oh, that's what you got to do, right?
it's hard to do that now. Harder. Yeah, like he probably did that in the '80s.
Hmm. So when you're on a TV show, you're writing, you're acting, whatever,
Mhm.
and the magic number, correct me if I'm wrong, is 100 episodes to get to syndication,
Right.
and that's more money, right? I mean,
Yeah.
how does that work in general as far as payment?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm not talking numbers. I'm saying, when you're on, let me ask you this: when you're on a TV show and you're writing, whether you're head writer or not, how do you get paid? Is it a weekly thing, every other week, every month, every episode, or does it depend on the person?
Right. So yeah, I really recommend television for people who want to, because it's the easiest way to make the most money.
Hmm.
So when you're on staff, you're going to write. You're going to get a weekly salary, right? So you're going to get
Okay, so it's weekly
usually in the $100,000 range for a year. So
for a rookie, for a
yeah,
new
even
person.
well, not always for a rookie, but yeah, it's most of the jobs I had, we were making that much money. Uh, I'm not sure why, but early on, that's pretty good money. And
Sure,
then you
right.
get paid for the episode you write. It's a whole different thing. And the Writers Guild has a payment breakdown for that. And then every time it reruns, that's why that magic number of 100 is a huge goal for syndicated TV shows. Um, you get so let's say you get 30,000 the first time you write for the script. That's sort of a typical sitcom breakdown. And
Mhm.
the next time it reruns, you get half of that. You get $15,000, and it keeps going like that mathematically. Next time it's like 7.5 thousand, keeps going in half until I get checks now for like 2 cents.
Even the showrunner. I mean, all those people are still they get chopped down too.
Well, yeah, after it's rerun like 10 times, it gets kind of low. But like the first time, the first rerun is half of what you got for the writing the script. That's usually in the neighborhood of $15,000, which is nice. You didn't do
Sure.
anything; you just got a rerun.
Hmm.
And then the next one will be 7,000. I know it adds up if you're writing like 30 episodes, like my partner and I did. That money adds up for.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
plus you get
So
pension. I got a writer's guild pension also.
there you go. I was going to say, are you? I mean, I don't need numbers, but you're benefiting from syndication yourself.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. The one that did the best, ironically, was the Wild Thornbirds, which is animated, and because there were 8 seasons of that and three or four movies based on the characters, and so I keep getting checks for those. Every once in a while I'll
sweet.
get a check for $3,000 or something. That's nice. And the pension
Who
is great. The Writers Guild pension, I think I'm getting like $35,000 a year.
nice. Now, who keeps? I mean, ugh, who keeps track of that? So you're not getting screwed. I mean, you're not sitting around watching every show that's syndicated.
Right, right. Well, the
I
writers.
mean, I'm sure there's a trust level somewhere.
Yeah, so that's another interesting point. I'm glad you brought that up. Is this, there's non-Writers Guild shows, and there's Writers Guild shows.
Hmm,
So the WGA protects the writers, makes sure they get like they have these things called minimums, and so they keep you from getting screwed over, and they keep track of all your sales.
good.
So and then that's why I'm getting like 35 grand a year from them now because they know everything. Also, you have to pay your dues to the Writers Guild. It's not very much, and um, so every time you get paid, they take a little something out of it. I think
Sure.
so. They keep track. So
Did
yeah.
the writer's strike affect you?
Oh yeah, yeah. The writers' strikes. There were several. Um, I mean, the ones back in the '90s. That's a period when uh, there was no work for maybe 9 months, and that was really
Hmm,
rough. That's when my partner and I decided to write cartoons because that's a totally different guild. So, Animation Guild, the Writers Guild, WGA is for live action usually, and so animation they don't pay quite as much per half hour
really?
episode, but so we started writing those, and it ended up with us being contracted to create those animated shows.
Is it harder to write? I think I asked this question, but
Oh
comedy or drama? Is that harder? What? I mean, comedy I think would be harder, but I don't know.
yeah, yeah. Your comedy is harder. Uh, that's why they have a room full of writers to come up with better jokes, and there's a lot of jokes don't work when you do the run throughs on Tuesday, and the actors put it on its feet, and then you see what's not working. So you have to go into the writers' room with all the other guys and try to figure out how to fix everything. It's tough. It's hard. The drama, you don't usually have to worry about the dialogue that much because there's not a lot of jokes in dramatic writing. So, but sometimes the story needs rewrites. I'm sure they have their own room full of writers and they fix problems in the room
Is
there.
it is it true for a comedy sitcom
Yeah.
to you have to have a laugh every I don't know
Oh
30
yeah,
seconds or something? I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but is that true?
yeah. A lot of the shows I wrote for had laugh tracks.
I hate that fucking
I
laugh
know,
track.
right? It's awful.
Uh,
But
I mean,
I guess they've done tests and people like the show better if there's some sprinkling of laughs. But
I mean, if you watch some comedies, I watch the show, and
right,
I'm like, that's not funny, but they're just throwing a laugh in,
I know.
and
Yeah,
I'm
they
like,
do
that's
it.
not funny. What? Oh, I
Yeah,
hate
they
it.
call it sweetening, and well, that's the term they use. It's funny. Uh, but yeah, there's a guy with a box, and They have all kinds of different laughs, and then they choose what they think would work the best. Yeah, I didn't usually take part in that, so, but yeah, there's people who do it. It's like I say, the studies have shown people enjoy them. The show's better. Like,
I
I
mean,
know it pisses you off, but and I don't particularly like it either.
yeah, I mean, some shows I like and it's funny and there's a laugh track, and some I'm like, oh my god, that's the laugh track is killing me. Whatever.
Yeah,
Now,
I know what you mean.
when you were writing on these shows,
Yes.
and the show's being taped, were you there in the
Yeah,
studio?
usually. Yeah.
That had to be cool. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
that's cool
We had a
shit.
live audience, and it was fun to watch. You know, sometimes with in front of the audience, jokes don't work there either. And usually, that's when the staff is. They want the staff there on filming nights to fix problems. So there's a lot of cases where we come up with another joke to fix things. You can't get them all, unfortunately. But yeah,
You know what? That's right. It's not live like Saturday Night Live.
no, it doesn't go right out, so you can edit it later.
I read actually just read a good book called Lorne about
Oh yeah,
I
so,
think Susan Miller is her name, about Lord Michaels. I mean, really detailed. I mean, phew, that guy put up a lot of shit, but he got to where he wanted to get.
yeah.
Anyway, so in your book, I mean, the second part of your book is at least pay the bills.
Oh
At
yeah.
what point, what level, you know, everybody wants to be a famous screenwriter, blah, blah, but at what level do you need to be to at least pay the bills?
Right, right. So TV works for that. Like you get a lot of money in television. Like you say, all my jobs were at least $100,000. So that was I recommend that to people. The other benefits
No,
of TV, you get to write something and then see it on its feet, filmed, maybe 2 weeks later. With movies, it takes years sometimes to get the funding and get the right stars in there, and so it takes forever. And sometimes the paydays are better, but not that much better. I remember getting paid $50,000 for a movie that I sold on a pitch with my wife. That's not that's not a lot of money compared to TV money.
now, when you were on these TV, right, were you the head writer? I'm sure there's different levels of cash flow.
Right?
You know, head writer,
Yeah.
Joe Schmo.
True.
For the 100G, were you the head writer
On which show?
for whatever when you were making 100,000 a year? Was
Oh
that like
yeah,
a
yeah,
head writing position or
yeah. That was just a regular writer. I think my
really?
partner and I had to split that. But yeah, if you're a writer, you can expect those kinds of salaries. Yeah, we were story editors on One Day at a Time. That was our very first staff show. Uh, yeah, and then you work your way up. They start changing the titles. Um, there's like associate producer, producer, supervising producer, executive producer, and those titles carry more weekly money with them the higher you
Hmm,
get. So, so
nice.
yeah, it adds up. There's a lot of money in television. Uh,
Now, I mean, also, I mean, that's good cash flow, but LA is not cheap either to live,
yeah,
from what I've heard.
that's a good point. It's true. Yeah,
I mean, you got to pay Uncle Sam.
right. Yeah,
you
taxes.
got you got other things going on like life,
Yeah, sure. No, I
but it's
hear.
still a good check. I mean,
Yeah, true. True. Yeah, it's yeah. I don't know how some people do it. I know people do.
now, I mean, when you were starting out and you got this writing job, did you continue? Because when a show stops, let's just take an actor for instance,
Uh-huh,
he's acting in a show, it stops. It's like, ugh, there's no guarantee he's going to move on to the next show, so
exactly.
he's got to make the dough before they go. You know what I mean? Did you ever have that gap where you're like, oh fuck, man, what am I going to do now?
Yeah, it happens all the time in our career. Because yeah, shows like the shows we created, for example, um, there's one called The Secret Service Guy, which Judge Reinhold and Ellen Cleghorn with Ellen Cleghorn, and those two they went one season, 18 and out, and they didn't get picked up. So after that, we had to go find, and we were creators on that show and showrunners. Uh, so
I
yeah,
mean, if you're pocketing the cash, and you have a little bank fold, fine. But if you're just starting out and you're on a show, it's like, yeah, but dabba do, let's go party, let's. cocaine hookers, the whole 9 yards, right? Or whatever you're into. And then the show stops. It's like, oh shit, got to make that car payment.
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's part of the gig. I'm not, I'm sure something's in your book to at least, bring the reality to it because
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
easy to get into, and
Right.
there's pitfalls.
I know. That's why I recommend the sort of the long view. Because it's easy to get upset when like that happens, for example, and then quit. And it happens to
Hmm.
writers a lot when they don't, maybe they don't, the show they're on ends and they don't get picked up on a different show for a year, 2 years, and 3 years, and then they start to go back to their old jobs.
What is a good job to have while you're trying to live in LA and
Oh yeah,
still, you're not working constantly, but you're trying to get established. What's a good day job to, keep that?
yeah. The day jobs I recommend are, for somebody who's moved out here and he's looking to get hired on a TV show, for example. There's a couple of jobs that, like, for example, on the shows that we created, um, we hired writers' assistants, which they're the guy in the room who's, they're not writers, but usually they want to be writers and
Mm.
they have spec scripts. And they're working closely with us, the showrunners, and writers are pitching ideas and they write everything down. And they're the ones that take notes basically on everything that happens in the room. Uh,
Hmm.
and that's a tough job, but I highly recommend it because on the two shows we created, we gave those guys episodes. So, uh, you know, uh, one of these guys went on to write for Dexter, but his first paying job, screenwriting job, came as a perk for being the writer's assistant. So that gets you started. That gets you an agent. And that.
So as an assistant, I mean, you're getting paid. This is not like an internship type thing.
Oh yeah, that's a paid job. So I recommend it for somebody uh, who wants to break into television. That's a great job, writer's assistant. And the other guy that was in our room working, Eric Shaw, went on to write for SpongeBob, and he won an Emmy for another show. So we
Classic.
give these guys their first paid screenwriting gig, which is the key to breaking in. Once you get paid to write something in Hollywood, people are interested. The agents want, uh, like they may, the agents have to decide between, um, like taking on a newbie writer who's never sold anything,
Hmm.
and that takes a lot of their time. They're working with that guy and trying to improve his writing and come up with ideas. What shows should you target and that sort of thing. But
I mean, that's a great gig if you can get it, right? I mean, let's just say you can't get that.
oh yeah,
I mean, are we talking being a waiter and all that bullshit? Or I mean,
yeah, yeah,
you know, I mean, that's the perfect gig. You're in the pizza shop. They make the pizza. You might as well roll the dough for the guy. I mean, you know what I mean?
right.
Outside of that job, is there anything?
Yeah, there's a couple other jobs. When I was like after USC, like one of the classes they teach you how to write. They call it coverage for script. That's when you read a screenplay and kind of grade it for the dialogue and the story and all the other things that go into character arcs and things. So I learned how to do that at USC, and then I applied to different studios. I got hired at American International Pictures, which and every day I went in to pick up a new script, and I was a bartender at the same time, so I pick up a script or a novel. Sometimes they give me novels to read, and then I would write
Nice.
coverage for it, which involves writing a summary that's really short, but you want it to capture as much as possible, the flavor of the work, which is not easy. I would
Hmm.
usually go home 10 bar. I'd be reading the script behind the bar while I was waiting for customers to order. And then I go home at like 2 in the morning and write the cover. And then you got to grade like I said, the dialogue and the story and the characters on a
Hmm.
scale of 10. So every day I had to do that. And then every day the next morning, I drove down to American International Pictures and dropped it off and got another script to read. So I was pretty busy at that point.
Sure. Yeah. You gotta hump. You gotta hustle. You gotta
Yeah,
write.
but that's a really good job for somebody. You really learn a lot about how to write when you're evaluating other people's screenplays.
So let's just say someone's listening and they're like, "Oh yeah, where would you go
Yeah,
to try to get that job?" Or is it a matter of knowing somebody? Where would you actually physically go? I'm in LA, you know, where do I go to see if that is available?
yeah. So you do what I did. You learn how to write the coverage, and you write a sample. So I think I was trying to be clever, and I got William Goldman came out with a book called Magic, and I thought, well, everything he writes turns into a brilliant movie, like Butch Cassidy and all these things. So I recommended it highly in my coverage,
There you
and
go.
I praised all the writing and everything because it was William Goldman. He's the guy that wrote all these great scripts. Anyway, they did make a movie out of that later. So that was the sample I sent around to all the studios, and they read it and said, "Oh, this guy likes, he knows the format. It's easy to read his writing, all that stuff." So that's how I got that job.
Nice.
And you send it. You can get the addresses and emails for all the studio. There's a studio department in every studio, so that's how you do
And
it.
then there's the dreaded rejection. I mean,
Oh,
they're not gonna just send it like, "Oh yeah, we'll take it." There's the dreaded rejection, and you got to pound the payment again and again
there's
and
a lot
again.
of that. Yeah, for screenwriters, it's very true. That's another thing I talk about in the psychology of how to handle all those rejections. So one thing that does help, I think, is just knowing that it happens to the best writers too. Guys like Stephen King, they collected rejection scripts, like hundreds of them, and yeah, somehow, all it takes is one person. That's one of the things I say in the book is all it takes is one yes.
That's right. You got to crack that bubble. I mean, you gotta take a chance and see what happens. Anything in life, but especially with that. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah, no, it's hard on people emotionally to want to stick with it and do their best work because let's say you've written 6 scripts and they all got rejected, and you're thinking, all right, I'm going to write another script, number 7. They're probably thinking it's not going to sell. Uh, so
Now,
yeah,
when you were writing as a young man,
right,
did you love writing? I think you got to love it, right? You can't just say, "I want to be a
yeah,
writer," just to tell your girlfriend. I mean, you got to love it, right?
yeah, that's true. It does help because the guys who get hired, I had some friends, amazing friends who, yeah, they loved writing so much. I don't love it as much as a lot of other people, uh, especially.
But they got to have a passion for it. Is
Yeah,
what I'm
you do.
saying, right?
Yeah, you have to really love. Yeah, when I was even in college, I was a kid. I loved the Marx Brothers, and I loved all these comedy movies that came out. I could quote the dialogue and that sort of thing. So I even wrote my honors thesis on a comedy writer at Stanford,
Nice.
and yeah, so I knew. So yeah, I kind of I worshipped the guys who wrote those scripts. So
I
that
mean,
helped a
some of
lot.
those comedies, yeah, those comedies back in the day are, well, as you know, I mean, you're probably watching the same ones I was, and then now they're, even those are sedated a little bit now, a lot actually. The comedies are not as,
Yeah,
what's the word, edgy.
edgy, right? Yeah,
You got to worry about this person and that person. I mean, just the Mike Myers films are just like over the top, hilarious, but
yeah.
someone's going to get offended. It's like, come on,
I know,
Jesus,
right? Yeah, Blazing Saddles is the classic.
Blazing
So
Saddles.
that, yeah, you probably could not get that movie made right now, which is a shame.
But I mean, you probably noticed that I think Richard Pryor actually was behind that. He wasn't just in it.
Yeah, true. He helped. He was in the writers' room. Yeah,
Or in the writers' room. I'm sorry. Yeah,
yeah. Brooks wrote movies like TV shows. He had 3 or 4 guys on that. I can't remember the other guys, but yeah, Pryor was in it. And yeah, I don't think they had him in mind for. I think he's a black sheriff in that. Am I remembering that correctly?
that's a classic movie.
Yeah, so funny. But yeah, he was in the writers' room, and I think they tried to cast other guys, but yeah, eventually he ended up in that role, and yeah,
Of
he's
course.
great in that.
Did you ever meet a gentleman named Herb Solo,
Herb Solo? I don't think so. You know?
head of Paramount Pictures at one time?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean,
I only bring that up because I had another gentleman on here, a director guy, who he came out of college and bugged him. Long story short, till the guy actually said, "Okay, come and you'll be a PA." He was persistent with his
uh,
constant,
right.
trying to get into the bubble, and that gave him a break.
I wrote for all the studios, like Disney, Paramount, MGM, Sony, the Norman Lear shows, and all the Mary Tyler Moore.
Yeah, I mean, this would be back in the early '70s. Just
Yeah, yeah, Newhart.
judging from the Mark Travis who came on and was talking about his beginnings, so to speak.
Right.
I have a little segment I created. I want to see if you can go along with this called
Oh,
Name Association. I'm
okay.
going to give you a name.
Okay.
Now, I'm not assuming you know all these people, but if you have a quote or a feeling or a story, great. It might just be one word, one sentence, but
Okay. Let's try.
let's give it a shot. It's the
Okay.
first time I'm doing this. Here we go. Name association.
Right.
Let's see. Uh, Robin Williams.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, genius.
Love that guy.
Yeah, I've seen him. I think I saw him at like there was a payphone in Studio City, and we were having hot dogs at the Papoose hot dog show, and yeah, he put on a show talking to this non-existent person on the other end of the line, and like for 40 minutes. It was hilarious.
So you're saying he was just outside?
Yeah, that was not even on a show. It was just like doing funny stuff. So
But was he Robin Williams, the famous Robin Williams at that time?
well, he was Mork and Mindy famous.
That's famous. I mean, that was pretty big. Yeah.
It was a number one show at the time. Uh,
So you recognized him? It was like,
oh
hey,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, that guy. Yeah, probably nobody like Richard Pryor. Maybe is close.
No, you worked on Mork and Mindy or no?
Sold the story to them. Yeah, so we went in and pitched. So
Like one episode?
yeah,
Or
for one
how?
episode. Yeah, I remember it's
Oh,
about white lies.
okay, cool, great. Did you ever meet Robin Williams though?
Yeah. Not at the studio, but outside the studio at the hot
In
dog.
the phone booth?
Yeah, watching him put on a show for everybody. It was amazing, like unbelievable. No scripts, nothing. Just
Oh, he was a
improv.
genius.
Yeah, king of the
Yeah.
improv.
All right. How about John Goodman?
Oh, John Goodman. Yeah, I worked with him also on the Flintstones.
Seems like a good guy.
Yeah, he was great. Yeah. Flintstones was a fun show to work on at that time. So we were some of the writers on the script, kind of like Mel Brooks. They had a room full of writers for the Flintstones, and so the director asked us to show up on the set. So we got to meet, and we get Elizabeth Taylor played Fred's mother-in-law on that. We got to meet
Right.
all these actors, and Rick Moranis played Barney. So Rick, we were assigned to him, my partner and I. Said he has a few questions and problems he'd like writers to improve on. So we went around figuring out and we wrote up alternatives.
Steven Spielberg.
Oh yeah, Spielberg was fun. We pitched the story for the Flintstones directly to him, and he was really nice. I got him to autograph a copy of Back to the Future. He wrote Back to the Past with the Flintstones on there,
Cool.
and
Cool.
very nice guy. He's not over the top or anything. Just sort of real
Sweet.
person.
How about Bob Newhart?
Yeah, Newhart was also a regular guy, but hilarious.
Kind of old school, right?
Right. Yeah, my partner and I had some input on the final episode of Newhart where he wakes up next to Emily. I don't know if you remember that. It's kind of a famous episode. But they were looking for like a B story for that. And my partner and I had this idea of what if somebody wants to come in and turn that town that Newhart lives in, turn it into, what's that?
Bedrock.
Yeah, not Bedrock, but something similar, like Solvang. Yeah. So our pitch was they want to buy the town and turning it into Solvang. Anyway, so they used that. They changed it a little bit, But they used that part. So we, yeah, marginally involved in that. But yeah, another
Mhm.
comic genius.
Yeah. How about Richard Dreyfuss?
Now, Richard Dreyfuss. Yeah, I don't think we ever met him.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I admire his work. He's a terrific actor.
Good guy. Pee Wee Herman.
Oh yeah, Pee Wee we worked with. That was really fun. He had a pilot idea that he wanted to write, and this is after we had some. We created 5 shows, so that we had kind of a reputation for being guys that could make that work. And they set us up at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, and we got the top floor, the Mayor Bradley Suite, I think it was called.
Mm.
And we ordered room service, and we were there all day writing with him, and he was hilarious, another hilarious guy.
Supposedly, he had, from what I've read, he had a ton of different characters, but Pee Wee Herman was the one that a studio or somebody wanted to go with, so he got stuck with that, so to speak.
Yeah, no, it's there's a really good documentary
Maybe,
on him right now that's out on HBO.
maybe that's what I actually. That's, you know what? That's probably where I got that information from. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. He was a trip. How about Norman Lear?
Norman Lear. Yeah, we worked on at least 2, maybe 3 of his shows. We never saw him, which was interesting.
Wow.
But he had something like 6 or 7 shows going at the same time, and
Oh, that guy.
so
Genius.
yeah, he didn't actually come in and break stories with us. But
How about Roseanne?
Roseanne, that's another interesting story. My partner and I worked on the Tom Arnold show, and she was the exec producer on that, and she also acted in it. She played a stalker, I think. Somebody was coming after Tom's character. It's kind of a funny idea. But yeah, she was kind of quirky. My partner and I, it's just Starsick and Silverman, most people call this. Anyway, my partner had really long black hair, and she called us the hippie and the Jew. I don't think she knew our names.
How about Drew Carey?
Yeah, Drew Carey was a lot of fun to work with. We worked with him on a show called The Good Life. This was before the Drew Carey show and before The Price is Right. Yeah, interesting guy. He was a Marine before he went into acting. I know we went to his apartment once just to hang out. I think Norm Macdonald came to that. A lot
There you
of
go.
people, and they were smoking pot. Again, this is
Wow.
before he was like a big shot.
Mm. Yeah. All right. No relation, I'm assuming. Sarah Silverman.
Oh yeah, Sarah Silverman. Yeah, not related to me directly, but she played a stalker on another show we wrote for called it's called Manhattan AZ, which is a very funny show, and it has like a former actor who decides he wants to be a sheriff in real life, so he kind of buys this town, and it was Chad Everett that played him.
Chad Everett. Wow.
Yeah, and there was an episode in where Sarah Silverman played the stalker again, and she.
Now,
was
did you ever
fantastic.
meet? Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I don't need a name, but I'm sure everybody's not nice. Did you ever meet someone who was famous and you were like, "Holy fuck, this guy or this girl, what an asshole"?
Yeah. Some actors are. There was one guy, like when we worked on Alf, the guy who played the father on that show, Willie Tanner is his name on the show. And he was kind of bipolar. One day he'd be okay, and then some days he'd be very difficult to work with. So the one day in particular, he was supposed to say something to Alf that was kind of derogatory, I guess. And I don't remember the joke or the line, but he said, I would not say that to Alf. He's like, he knows the relationship better than anybody because he's the actor. So I refuse to say that line. I forget what it was, but he locked himself in his dressing room the whole day. And he had the camera guys who were there getting paid. It's not cheap, it's thousands and thousands of dollars. And we couldn't shoot the episode that day. He locked himself in there. And the next day, I guess this is where the manic and the mood swings come in. He brought
Sure.
a box of Dom Perignon and gave one to everybody and apologized.
No, that's good. That's
Yeah.
nice.
But he must have cost the budget must have gone way up for that one.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. So look, before I wrap this up, you mentioned Elf. Who was controlling Elf? Who played Elf? How'd that work?
Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, this what's his name again? Anyway, he's the one that created the show with.
But I mean, it was like
It's a puppet,
a
and
puppet kind of. I mean,
there was a
was there
version
a
of
hand in there? What was going on?
the hand mostly. They did have an elf suit, and Yumu fit into the suit. They didn't, and he's a very tiny guy, and they didn't use that very often. But yeah, mostly, and they had a special stage design, so um, it came about chest high. That was the floor of the living room in the Tanner household, and so this guy could stand up and like his head was basically floor level. They could
Right.
hold the puppet up like that, and there were remote controls on his eyes and stuff and his ears that made them move around. And there's a whole group of people, with the remote controls and stuff, and doing that during this.
Wow.
So it was really involved. But yeah, he was hilarious. Paul Fusco is the guy
Okay.
who created the Alf show, and he was really
Yeah.
funny. So, and Tom Patrick created the show with him. It
Certainly.
was a really fun
Classic.
show to work on.
Yeah, classic. So what's going on currently for you? That I mean, besides the book, which I recommend, How to Be a Rock Star Screenwriter, at least pay the bills. I mean, I read portions of it that's online, before it cuts off,
Oh,
and I'm like, oh, I got to keep reading this. But anyway,
oh yeah.
what's going on besides wanting to get the book out there? Anything else?
Oh, right, right. Well, I should announce this actually.
Sure.
So the book the Kindle version is going to be free from July 4th through July 8th, and so it's kind of a experiment to see how that works and see if a lot of people pick it up for free. But if you're at all interested, if you know a screenwriter, if you have a son or a nephew or some poor guy who has decided he wants to be a screenwriter, you need all the advantages. You need all the good advice you can get, and that's sort of what is in the book. That's why I created the book for people, and all the things we've talked about during the show, the rejections, and how to keep your head in the game, regardless of all the tough stuff you have to endure.
I mean, these are huge talking points. I mean, these are great advice if you want to get into that scene. It's not easy, but you love it, you got to do it. I mean, and this book sounds like it's right in the
Yeah,
pathway. Um,
yeah, it's great
um,
for anybody who wants to become a screenwriter or a television writer. So I talk about both. There's also a chapter on older writers. So sometimes I know a lot of people in their 40s and 50s. There's some advice on how to break in. It's easier to break in writing low budget movies than it is otherwise, because the TV staffs are populated by 20 somethings and 30 somethings.
I'm sure.
And when people hire more writers for that, they generally looking for people who kind of fit in, unquote. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, there's an ageism issue in Hollywood. So there's a lot of good advice depending on what your ideas are, how old you are, if you want to work from Nebraska or come out here. If you're thinking about film school, you're not sure, there's advice on that too.
Nice, excellent. Well, Dave, I really appreciate you coming on. This has been a great talk.
Oh, great. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
This has been an unmuted podcast with Papamutes.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you hit the subscribe button, it'll help us out a lot. Thanks again.